to the 62nd edition of Drive-Thru Review. Today we're going to talk about Bullfrog Goldfield. It's a brand new game from Numskull Games. It plays 2 to 5 in either 2 to 4 hours in there, and you can actually play a short, a medium, and a long game, so it's going to vary based on which approach you take. It's a train game, and it feels like it would be almost an 18xx type of game because you're buying stock, you don't really necessarily own one company or one railroad, and it's a lot of changing money, there's some auctioning in there, you're building track, but there's a lot of different stuff to it. And I've never played an 18xx game. I've played a lot of the Wallace train games, and then some of the stock games, some of the more basic ones like Airlines Europe or Acquire and things like that. But it feels to me like this is sort of a Wallace-y type of train game, and it's not too mundane or dry like I expect some of the 18xx games are. Like I said, I haven't played them. It's got a nice sort of streamlined rule set and a lot of little nice choices in the game. Before I go too much into it, let me show you how it works, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit more about what I think. Okay, so let me give you a quick component overview. You can see it's got this nice tray in here, and this serves its purpose for the most part. Stuff will kind of slide around, but it's very nice for packing things away. You got some stock certificates, some company charters. In here you've got your train, paper money, and you've got these mining tiles, which I'll explain those in a second. And the game is nice that it comes with 4 player aids, and it's double-sided. So it's got some of the payout charts and then some of the basic turn structure there. And this is not quite as bad as it might seem. It's just sort of reminders for some denominations. I'll explain that in a minute. And then you've got your rulebook, and it's got another set of charts here. Now, I will say that the rulebook is pretty good. I did have to go online and ask some questions to get some clarifications, and they were pretty vital to certain points of the game. I mean, you could play fine just by reading the rulebook, I believe, but there's just a couple of little minor details that I had to figure out. So, not too bad, but pretty good. So obviously it comes with paper money. This paper money is a little bit sturdier than I'm used to, so that's kind of nice. It's not super flimsy. You've also got bonds for railroads, so these will be taken out, and you will be taking these out early and often to help pay for track and build buildings, etc. Now for each company in the game, you're going to have a charter, which acts also as a stock certificate. The person that owns the charter is considered the president or the owner of the company, and you're also going to have 2 other stock certificates. Now you're also going to be able to invest in mining companies. And here you see a mining company charter as well as 2 mining stock certificates. And again, the charter also acts as a stock certificate. You're going to be placing mine tiles on this space here, and I'll explain the mine tiles in just a second. Now here we've got some train. These will be used for laying track on the board. So for example, this blue rail here, you'll start building track right from its home city, and then you'll need to build track adjacently from there on out. You're also going to be taking one of the trains and placing it on the income track here. And this will show the income value and basically the stock value of that train company. You also get pawns, and each of these is representing a mining company and the matching color of that company. These are also going to go on the income track you can see down here and gauge the worth of that company. Next, you're going to get some buildings, and these can be placed either on a town, which you can see this space here is Beatty, and that's a town, and any spot with one of these little town symbols is this town. And you can also put buildings on an actual mine, and the mines are these oval symbols here on the board. So players will be building these buildings and paying for these to increase the overall income of any tracks that run through the building or any surrounding mine. So if I build a building here, this is going to influence this mine and increase its income respectively. And here we have the mining tiles, and there's 2 groups here. You've got your shallow dig and your deep dig. Now in the medium length game, you're going to take 3 shallow digs and stack them on top of 3 deep digs, and they'll put those on top of the mining charter. Then at the end of every round, any mines that are active, which means that any mines that have had stock purchased in them, you're going to take and flip over the top mining tile. And basically what this means is that mine's just going to go up 6 points in income. So once you go through your deep dig tile, or your shallow dig tiles, you'll go onto your deep dig. And these are basically the same, but there's a little catch here. So if you flip this one over, it'll go up 4 income for that mine, but then it's going to tell you to go and add another deep dig tile. in a sense, it's basically like you've discovered, more depth to the mine, more gold. And so that mine's going to last a little bit longer. However, you may uncover a mining tile that actually makes you subtract one of the deep dig tiles. So in this case, if we'd flip this over, income would go up 3, and then we would remove a mining tile. And so this would be the last one left, and this would remove the final tile, and then that mine would be exhausted. Now you're going to play the game until all but one of the active mine's mine tiles is emptied, or one company hits 100 on the income track. If either one of those events happens, that game will be in its final round, and you'll finish the round and then total up whoever has the most money and the most value in the stocks based on where that stock is on the income track. Finally, we have role selection cards. In the beginning of each round, players are going to take turns choosing these cards, and these are going to determine the turn order for that round. You can see each of them has a number on there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then another special ability that the player will have for that turn. So let's do a quick turn breakdown, starting with this, and then we'll go from there. So after randomly deciding a start player, players are going to take turns choosing these cards in a clockwise order, and then they're going to go into an action phase. There are 5 possible actions that a player can do on their turn, and then after we've resolved 3 actions, we're going to go into an income phase with 6 simple steps. After selecting the cards, then we'll go into the action phase. There'll be 3 rounds of actions in this turn cycle, and you just use this little marker here to track that. After everyone's done a 3rd action, and maybe any extra actions provided by the cards, then you go into the income phase. Now the first possible action is going to be to buy stock. The first time you buy stock in a company, you're going to get its charter, and the cost is always going to be $10,000. You may pay more if you wish. So let's say I bought this yellow rail line here and I paid $10,000. Then I'm going to take the yellow marker for that train line and place it here on the 10. If I had purchased it for higher, let's say I wanted to pay 15 for it, then I could put that on the 15. Now what's going to happen when I purchase it, let's say I bought it for 15, I would take the $15,000, take the charter, and then I'm going to put the $15,000 in the railroad itself. So now the company has some seed money to start purchasing track and buildings with. If another player or even myself wanted to come along and purchase another piece of stock in that railroad, then the cost is going to be whatever it is on the income track. So they would need to pay $15,000 and they could get a piece of stock. And then anytime you purchase a stock after the initial stock, this is going to bump up $5,000 on the income track. Now for some reason, let's say I had the charter, and then Bill, my friend across the table, he purchases the first stock, and then he purchases the second stock. Now he has the majority shareholdership, so what's going to happen is I'm going to give him the charter, and he's going to give me one of the pieces of stock. So he now runs this company. The same goes true for mining. You can buy the first stock, which will give you the charter, and it also comes with these just randomly distributed tiles on top of it. And then if somebody else were to come and purchase these 2 stocks, then the ownership would change hands. And remember, every time you buy stock, it's going to bump up $5,000 on the income track. And again, when you purchase any additional stock certificates, that money is going to go directly into the charter and not into the bank itself. The next action you can do is sell stock. Now you can never sell the company charter. Once you have that, you're basically stuck with it. If you choose to sell a piece of stock, you're going to start bidding with the player to your left, and the initial bid must be half of the current income value on the track. And it's just going to keep going around and around to the table until everybody passes. Whoever wins it gets the stock, with the money paid to the person that put up the stock for auction. The next action a player might do would be to build a building. Now you can build a building directly on a town or on a mine. Normally the cost to build a building is $30,000. But if you've got a railroad going through here, it's actually only going to cost you $20,000. So it's a little bit cheaper if there's a rail line going to it. Now building buildings have 2 effects. Basically there's what's called a boomtown bonus, and then there's a stock evaluation sort of bonus. So let's take a look at the boomtown bonus. So if I had placed this building here and purchased that there, then immediately any rail that's going through this town with the building is going to get a stock bump. Now if there's only one rail going through here, it's going to get a stock bump of $12,000. So it's going to go up the track 12 spaces. If there were 2 rails in here, they would basically each get 6. So it's always going to be 12 divided by the number of rails that are going through here. And you can only have a maximum of 4 different rails in each space. So if there were 3 rails coming in here, they would each get 4. So basically 12 divided by 3. The other aspect to a Boomtown bonus is it's not only going to affect the rails that are passing through here, but any mine spaces that are within 2 spaces adjacent to the spot where you place the building. So if there were only 1 mine that was within that vicinity, it would also get a bonus of 12 on that mine stock. But since in this case there are 2 mines within 2 spaces, they'll each get 6. So basically 12 again divided by the number of mines, and there'll never be more than 2. The second effect, in addition to the Boomtown bonus of placing a building, is it allows a train or a mine stock to move further up the track. So let me show you a little bit about this track on the corners. So you can see on this corner here, and this is the first corner, this is the $25,000 value spot. And you can see this side says 1 building on here. So this means that 1 building needs to be associated with this train line. So it's not going to be able to pass this corner until there is at least 1 building going through this train line. And the same is true for mines. So if there is a building within an influence of the mine or actually right on the mine itself, then it'll be allowed to pass that. If it's not, and for some reason some other effect were to push the stock value past that, it's going to be wasted and have to stop right there. So the order in which you do these actions is very, very important and a big aspect of this game. And that brings us to building buildings on a mine. Now you can build a building directly on a mine. It's not going to provide any Boomtown bonus here, but it is going to affect the mine's ability to go around these corners on the track. The next action that a player can do is lay track. Now to lay track, you have to have the charter for the rail line. So on your turn, you can lay up to 3 track unless you have the ability card that lets you lay more. And typically it's going to be $10,000 to lay track in a desert spot, or $50,000 to lay track in a mountain. So if I were to lay these 3 tracks, I would have to pay $30,000, and that would be my track laying action. Now typically when you take this action, especially early in the game, you're going to have to take a bond. And the bonds come in some different denominations here, and what you do is you basically take that bond and put it on the charter, and then get the money out and pay for whatever you need to pay for. This is going to be something the players are going to have to get very familiar with. Now there's a couple of effects that are going to happen when these tracks intersect with different areas of the board. And this is probably what I would call probably the majority of the meat of the game, and the thing that players need to be most aware of. So when a track intersects with a town or an operating mine, there's going to be some value adjustments on the income track. And an operating mine just means somebody has actually purchased the company charter, and if somebody has purchased the company charter, it basically means that mine is active and people are actively mining it. And that's when you're going to pull the tiles off of the mine at the end of the turn. If nobody has the charter, nobody's there mining it. And this is also going to drive whether or not this train line is going to generate income at the end of the turn. So let's take a look at this. We've got the green line starting here. So he could come across here and connect to this blue mine, this here. Now until he does so, and until this blue mine is active, the green train's not going to generate any income. But when the green train actually intersects and touches this mine, and it's active, then the mine itself and the green train are going to get a bump right on the income track immediately. And again, this is divided by the number of rails connected. So if there's just 1 rail connected to the 1 mine, then this rail is going to get a bump of plus 24, which is quite a bit. And you can see it's going to bump up around the corner of the track. So remember, you need a building on the rail to get around the 25. So that's going to happen pretty quickly. So you're going to want to get these buildings out in a reasonable fashion. Now, in addition to the train getting plus 24, the mine's also going to get plus 12 on its stock. So let's say this yellow train line comes in here. So it's going to immediately get the plus 12. The mine's going to get a plus 12, and this green's actually going to lose 12 because initially it had the 24, but now it's sharing this with the yellow line. So they have to take that 24 and divide it. So the green will actually drop by 12. Similar to rails connecting to a mine and getting a bonus, they also get a bonus when they connect to a town. And if you see, this is the starting town for the green railroad. So it's going to get this bonus that I'm about to explain right away. And each railroad has a starting town that's, has a train depicted in its color and the town. So in this case, the first connected railroad to a town is going to get plus 12. Now all of these are here easily to remind you on this chart. So you can see first railroad plus 24, second connects gets plus 24, and the first gets minus 12. Third comes in and gets plus 8, the other two get minus 4. So you can just easily refer to that, but it's pretty simple, straightforward. You're just dividing whatever the maximum is by the number of railroads connected. Now one thing to keep in mind with the payments for some of these items is the source of the payment must always come from the same place. And based on what the payment is for, you can pay for it in a different few ways. So if you're going to build a building, you can pay for it from your own holdings or the holdings of a railroad that may be in that space or from the mine itself. Now similarly with a building on a town, you can pay for it with your own holdings or from a railroad going through that town. The final action is the haul ore action, and this is a simple action. Basically, the player will take $2,000 directly from the bank and choose any active mine that has a company charter that's been purchased and bump it up 2 spots on the track. It could be any mine. The player doesn't have to own the mine, it just has to be active. So once players have completed 3 rounds of actions, taking any one of those 5 actions, we're going to go into the income phase. The first step of the income phase is to develop any mines that have been purchased. So any active mines will flip over the top tile of their dig site, and then the mine will go up that much in income. And then again, any of the deep dig mine tiles that have a plus or minus on the deep digs, you'll either add or subtract the tiles at this point. And then any mines that have no tiles left on this are going to deactivate at the end of this phase. It's not going to happen right now, but after we go through this whole income phase, then they'll basically deactivate. All the stock will become worthless. Everything will just basically get put back in the box. The next step in the income phase is to collect income. And basically you just simply take a look at where all of the mines and trains are in the income track, take that much money out of the bank and put it directly into the company charter. Next, all of the railroads that have any bonds on them must pay 10% interest on the bond. So in this case I'd pay $10,000 or $25,000. And they must do that. If they can't, if they don't have enough money, they've got to take out another bond, pay the 10% interest on that bond, and then pay 10% interest on the previous bond. After paying interest, then the operator of the railroad can choose to pay off the bond entirely if they have the funds for it. Finally, the owner of the charter for each of the companies can choose to pay out dividends. They don't have to pay out dividends, and a charter will never have this much money on it. But if they choose to, then players will get 1/3 of the total cash on the company charter for each stock they hold, and that includes the charter holder itself. So if somebody were to somehow hold both stocks and the charter, then they'll just get all the money. Otherwise it's 1/3. So for example, if somebody just owned this charter for this blue railroad and nobody else owned any stock, just the charter holder itself will get 1/3. Now they don't have to do that. They can choose to do that. If they choose to do that, then that railroad or mine will get +5 on the income track. If they choose not to do that, then it's actually going to drop 5. Any railroads that have a bond still on them will not pay dividends. So you've got to pay these bonds off to get dividends when that time comes. So after paying dividends, then you're going to remove any exhausted mines immediately from the game, removing all of their stock. Everything becomes worthless for that mine. In addition, any railroads connected to that mine are going to lose value as well. So if there's only one railroad connected, it'll actually drop 24 points on the income track, quite a substantial amount. If there are 2, they each drop 12, 3 drops 8 each, and then finally if there were 4 connected, they drop 6 each. Finally, we're going to check to see if the game has ended. If any stock moved past 100 on this track, or if all but one of the active mines had depleted all of their mine tiles, then we're going to take and everybody's going to add up their current holdings, dividends they've received through the game, any money left over, and then they're going to take money for the value of each of the stocks they own, and then whoever has the most total money wins the game. Now any railroads at the end of the game that still have a bond on them are not going to be worth anything. They're basically totally worthless. So you want to get these bonds paid off if you want your railroad to be, any worth to you at the end of the game. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that overview. This is sort of a first experience for me. Like I said earlier, I'd played Martin Wallace train games and some of the more basic stock games, and I haven't really played this type of game. I haven't played an 18xx game. So I'm not really sure if I should even be putting this in the same category as that. There's some similarities from what I've read about 18xx games. There's some differences. There's not different track types, and you can own stock in two different types of companies. You can own stock in railroads and mines, and that's really cool. I really like that aspect of it, and I really like the mines, how they kind of slowly pay off, a little bit here and there, and they need to be active. You need to have mines to, activate your railroad, so to speak. But the mines are gonna die out. They're gonna die out before you really want them to. Sometimes, we had a game where the first time I played it, it was kind of funny because I had one rail that I really worked one railroad really hard while others were sort of cherry picking, and I shot that sucker way up, and I had tons of money, and it was tied to this one mine. Well, lo and behold, on the last turn of the game, after I pushed my railroad up to the top, I drew that mine tile, and it was a -2 mine. So I had to explode the mine, and it was all gone. So not only was my mine gone, and it could have been there, I lost all the money for the mine, but then it sucked my railroad back down the income track. So, it was like there was an explosion at the mine, and my company was ruined. So that was a really cool aspect of the game, and I think some people might have a problem with that. I don't think so, though, because it's steady. Everybody has the same problem, so you've got to take that risk in mind, and that's a thing that I really like about it. It adds that sort of risk element to the game that is really something I think unique from what I've seen anyway. And the other thing I really like about this game, and I think this is a real key similarity, maybe not in terms of a mechanism, but in terms of feel, from what I've, from what I've seen, is you can really kind of do what you want. The rules are such that it's not a very long rule book. It's 10 pages, and each action that you're going to do is really affecting the outcome of it. So, you build a building here, it gives a bonus here, it lets people get around the tracks. You can choose sort of different approaches pretty easily. Like I said before, I rode one railroad basically into the ground in that case. But, I've seen other times where people will just kind of purchase stock. Oh, you bought blue, I'm going to buy stock in that. Or you bought yellow, I'm going to buy stock in that. And they just kind of ride the stock a little bit. Or they try to, ride out the mines and just kind of milk it and, grab money into their personal holdings instead of relying on, that final payout for the worth of the stock at the end of the game. So there's a lot here that, it's really new to me. And I don't know, it's almost hard to say this is a really good game or not. I think it's definitely a good game, that's for sure. And it gets me to want to play 18xx games, but it also gets me to want to play this game a lot more too. So a lot of the strategies and stuff, it's kind of new for my brain. So I think that it'll be interesting to see this game. I expect it to get some attention here in the near and medium term future. Probably from some, more advanced and experienced train gamers. But I think this is probably a decent gateway game from, your more basic, ish Wallacey type games. If you got your Railways Tycoon and Steam and all that. And this is probably on par age of Steam, I'm guessing. But it seems it's a little bit more freeing. You've got your loans and you've got your sort of stuff that way, but it's not tied down strict, lockdown mechanisms. You can kind of just do whatever you want because you're not really like one company or anything like that. You can just earn stock. The last thing I would say and leave you with, and it's another aspect that I really like, is each turn you've got 3 actions. So you've got to be real kind of careful about the order that you take those, because you need to have a mine built to be able to start getting your train income. And you want to have that set up so when you place the building, you get a Boomtown bonus. But the thing is you kind of want the building to be there as well when you connect, because you want to be able to get around those corners. So like the first corner, you need a building to get past 25, and to get around 50, you need 2 buildings, and then 75 is 3, and 100 is 4. So there's you kind of watch people and see what order they're doing things in. And at certain points, you can kind of guess which card to take at the beginning of the round. Like, okay, Bill's going to try to squeeze in a free building action this turn based on one of the card abilities. So that kind of Eurofies it a little bit. And I hate that word. I almost hate the word Euro, because it's like, oh, it has a strategy. So it's Euro. I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense. All right. But it has that real sort of pared down, you know, easy to follow mechanics. And like all the payouts are real sort of, you know, methodical. You just take the max, divide it, and everything is real kind of streamlined. So I think this will be good for that type of people. I think it could be a good, you know, it's not going to be for everybody. I had some people that it was like, ooh, it was a little heavy, I think, for them, a little bit overwhelming. But for the most part, I think, well, actually, I think everybody that I played this with so far has been like, well, I want to play that again. So I think it's going to wallop you over the head the first time you play it, especially if, you know, I don't think anybody I played it with has played an 18xx game. So, and a lot of them hadn't even played like Age of Steam or even Rise of the World or anything, you know, just basic stock games. So this is one I would definitely take a look at. So thank you.